I'm immediately withdrawing from the unfair one-sided Paris Climate Accord ripoff.
Why would the President of the United States, arguably the leader of the free world, step away from the most significant global agreement on climate change? Was it a bold move to protect American interests or a reckless gamble with the planet's future? Today, we're diving into the controversial decision by President Donald Trump to pull the United States out of the Paris Climate Agreement. And trust me, the reasons might surprise you. Grab your coffee, buckle up, and let's unpack this pivotal moment in modern history. First, let's take a quick peek into what the Paris Climate Agreement is all about. The Paris Climate Agreement is an international treaty aimed at addressing climate change. Adopted in 2015 by 196 countries at the 21st Conference of the Parties, COP21, in Paris, its main goal is to limit global warming to well below 2 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels, with efforts to keep it below 1.5 degrees Celsius. The agreement focuses on reducing greenhouse gas emissions, adapting to the impacts of climate change, and providing financial support to developing countries. Nations are required to submit voluntary nationally determined contributions, NDCs, and report on their progress regularly. The treaty also aims to strengthen global cooperation in tackling climate challenges and fostering sustainable development. Countries set their own voluntary targets, known as nationally determined contributions, or NDCs, to reduce emissions. Sounds good, right? A global team effort to save the planet. But there's a catch. These commitments aren't legally binding. Nations can pledge reductions, but there's no enforcement mechanism to ensure compliance. That loophole alone raised eyebrows. But for President Trump, there were much bigger issues. So, why did President Trump pull out? His decision boiled down to 3 key arguments: economics, fairness, and sovereignty. First, Trump argued that the agreement was a bad deal for America. He claimed it placed disproportionate burdens on the United States while letting major polluters like China and India off the hook. He famously said, and I quote, "The Paris Accord will undermine our economy, hamstring our workers, and put us at a permanent disadvantage to other countries." According to Trump, complying with the agreement could cost the U.S. nearly $3 trillion in GDP and over 6 million industrial jobs by 2040. Whether those numbers were entirely accurate is debatable, but the fear of economic impact played a significant role. Second, fairness. Trump pointed out that under the agreement, the U.S. was expected to shoulder a larger burden despite already being one of the most efficient economies per unit of GDP. Meanwhile, developing nations like India were allowed to continue increasing their emissions for years. And lastly, sovereignty. Trump and his supporters argued that the Paris Agreement infringed on America's ability to make its own energy policies. He positioned the withdrawal as putting America first, a cornerstone of his presidency. Now, before we dive deeper into the global reaction and the broader implications of this decision, let's take a quick break. If you're enjoying this breakdown and want to stay informed on important political topics, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us bring you unbiased, in-depth analyses. All right, back to the story. Trump's announcement was met with widespread backlash. World leaders, environmental groups, and even many within the U.S. condemned the move. Former President Obama called it a rejection of the future. France's Emmanuel Macron even delivered a speech in English urging scientists and researchers to make our planet great again, a direct jab at Trump's slogan. But not everyone disagreed. Some conservatives and business leaders praised the decision as a stand for American sovereignty and a rejection of globalism. In June 2017, after President Donald Trump announced the United States' withdrawal from the Paris Climate Agreement, Bill Gates voiced significant concern. He remarked, "I am deeply concerned with the decision to take our country out of the Paris Agreement." However, Gates stressed that his organization, Breakthrough Energy Ventures, would persist in investing in companies and technologies focused on delivering reliable, affordable energy while avoiding harm to the climate. He also expressed hope that the U.S. would continue its bipartisan support for the development of innovative technologies through backing leading laboratories and universities. The globalist climate change agenda, which emphasizes international cooperation and large-scale agreements like the Paris Climate Accord, has faced criticism over its perceived failures. Here are some of the key points of contention, particularly concerning failed predictions and shortcomings. Certain high-profile climate predictions made by global institutions, scientists, and advocates have not materialized as expected, leading to skepticism about the urgency or accuracy of the climate change narrative. Predictions from the early 2000s, including a 2007 statement by former Vice President Al Gore, suggested the Arctic could be ice-free in the summer by 2013. This did not happen, and while Arctic ice levels have decreased, they have not disappeared. Some projections, like those from the 1970s and 1980s, warned of catastrophic food shortages and global chaos by the 2000s due to climate change. While climate issues remain serious, these extreme scenarios have not come to pass. This stark divide highlights just how polarizing the issue of climate change remains in both the US and the world. Now let's talk about the fallout. Critics feared that pulling out would embolden other nations to slack on their commitments, potentially derailing global climate efforts. On the flip side, some argued that the US could still meet its emissions goals without being in the agreement, thanks to state and private sector initiatives. But here's the twist. While the federal government stepped back, many states, cities, and companies doubled down on their climate goals, effectively keeping the US in the game, even if unofficially. So, was pulling out of the Paris Agreement a pragmatic choice to protect American workers, or a short-sighted decision with long-term consequences for the planet? The answer might depend on where you stand politically. I want to hear from you. What do you think? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and let's get the conversation started. And if you found this video insightful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. Until next time, stay informed, stay engaged, and keep questioning the world around you.